Mm. Welcome everyone to a special episode of Open Mic with the MVP Marco. I am, of course, your host, the MVP Marco, and I'm not alone tonight. I have Mrs. MVP as she's known in the Chick Foley Facebook group and everyone else. So this is Kimberly.
Hello.
Introduce yourself. There you go. Yeah, so she'll be joining. It's a Mother's Day episode. That's what we're going for here. We have another special guest, but before we get to the special guest, I want to obviously the Pod Foundation. I always shout them out. That's why I'm here, and I always say that every single week. And obviously, that's the Turnbuckle Tavern, the Extra Cooler Show, coming down the aisle, and of course, the Chick Foley Show. Definitely check us all out. Check all the socials. Check it all the times. It's too much, content out there to ramble off everything that's going on, especially with the Turnbuckle Tavern. They have like a million shows. I'm on one of them, the Raw Down, every Tuesday at 9 p. EST. I'm on Patreon. Check that out. Well, let's bring our guest on. So this is I think this is the first 4-time guest on the show, I believe anyway. So we're gonna bring her on. Hello, Sheena, Chick Foley. How are you?
I am good. The first 4-time open mic guest, dude.
Yeah.
Suck it all the other guests that have been on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Get at me, bro. I'm like, doing the Ric Flair. I'm just gonna have so many guest appearances on the open mic, like nobody's gonna be able to touch me, dude.
Probably, yeah. That's probably gonna happen. You have like multi-time appearances. But yeah,
Right.
I think you're on by yourself. You're on
with Seth, right?
With Seth, you're on with Over the Moon Salt.
Yep. And now I'm on with Mrs. MVP.
Yeah, man. Look at that. See that? But I wanted to bring you on because obviously, like I said, it's a Mother's Day episode, and I mean, I hope I didn't didn't say there are any other mothers out there, but obviously my wife, she's a mom. You're a mom.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yeah,
so they tell me.
So I wanted to, bring everyone together and kind of talk about mom stuff and give some insight on, day-to-day stuff, like what goes through your head. Obviously, you can keep
it's
the dark,
mom-tastic episode.
Yeah, you can.
You want us to keep the intrusive thoughts in our head?
If you want to, it's totally up to you. It's up to your discretion. If you want to say
I'm just joking.
But no, just like
motherhood is a beautiful thing.
Yes, definitely. And I think this is something a little bit different. It's gonna Mother's Day. It'll appear. So we'll get the moms out there, all the figure moms, all the wrestling moms out there.
Yep.
All the wives that are moms.
Absolutely. And even if your dudes listen to this, everybody had a mom, and everybody, if you got a wife and she's a mom, you know what I mean? Like moms are everywhere, dude. We've all been impacted by a mom in some way, shape, or form. Even if it wasn't our biological mom, there's mother-like figures out there. And I just shout out to all those women who are out there doing mom work.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like, like you said, there's a lot of like mom figures out there. It doesn't have to be your biological mom. It could be like your best friend's mom might have been like a mom to you. That's
exactly, or your grandma.
Yeah, yep. That's always a thing. So I want to how do we want to start this? So you want to, what's your definition? Let's start with you. What's your definition of being a mom?
Oh God. Do I like? How do I don't even know how to like. I don't even know how to like.
What do you like? What do you like when you think of being a mom? What is?
I don't know.
Is it caring
for
loving, like losing sleep over, well, just losing sleep over, like just constantly worrying about this tiny little human that that you're creating to become an adult. And it's like every little thing that you do, you constantly think like, am I doing the right thing? The mom guilt is like the most realest thing ever.
For sure.
I don't know how many times I've cried in the shower just thinking, how much therapy is these kids going to need because I yelled at them today?
I know, it's this all-encompassing type of love and emotion that's just like so it gives you just so much joy, a joy that you can't even describe
Mhm.
sometimes. And then it also brings you so like it can bring you to your knees where you're just like, what the heck am I doing here? And I
And it
feel
scares
like
the shit out of
it's
you.
yeah, it's just such a just a roller coaster of emotions all the time. And I know, we're talking about moms. I know all parents, dads have this, but I think it's a very special thing, like, being a mother and like, you've birthed these children, you're this like primary caretaker a lot of times for these children, and it's a huge responsibility. Like you said, you're trying to bring up children that are going to be good citizens and good humans and kind humans and all of
Mhm.
this. And do they test you in so many ways, and every day you feel like you're failing them.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, it's just like, if you love your kids and you are giving them what you feel is best for them, then they're going to be okay.
So
All kids need is love, and we give them so much extra shit, and
Yeah.
really all they need is love and direction.
I I listen to Joe Rogan all the time, and I heard this fun fact about mothers is the reason why we have that mother intuition is because even though we gave birth, our children's cells are still in our body,
Oh yeah, I believe that fully. I
which
think
is
that, I
like
mean,
so.
I never really thought about that, but I fully like
So
get
it's like
that.
even when I'll say like there's something going on with say Lucas or whatever, he'll
Yeah.
be like, oh, I'm like I just have that like something's going on, and it's like
The connection.
I just have that weird connection with our kids, which is awesome. But when he was saying that, I was like, oh my God, this is like validation.
Huh.
Mhm.
Do you
Yeah,
ever feel
absolutely.
Science.
is that the same with you, Sheena? Do you ever feel like, like when your kids are going through something, it's like you can like feel like
Oh
whatever
yeah.
angst or whatever they're going through like mentally almost? That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, Kimberly and I are coming from an interesting perspective because our kids are still young, right? We haven't hit the preteen, teenager years. So like every mom's perspective and like what, like you might be thinking, oh, your kids are young, like you just wait. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I'm not a person to say like you just wait. Like I feel like every stage of motherhood is hard in its own way, and every stage of motherhood has its, beautiful aspects of it, right? But yeah, I feel like as little kids, I mean, they're so dependent on you that you do know like the mental load of motherhood is just absolutely insane. Like every little thing about these people before they even say it, right? Like
Yep.
like when they walk up to you, like half the time when my son walks up to me, I already know what he needs before he even opens his mouth,
Yep.
so it is a definitely a deep connection. And I fully, I mean, I'm on board with the whole like, yes, his cells are still going in my bloodstream.
Mhm.
No, I don't want to put me in it because I'm not a mom, but so I'll relegate it to you. So you both have sons and daughters,
Mhm.
right? What's the like what's that connection like? Obviously it's different. It's not gonna be the same you know, with your son as it is with your daughter. Is you said like like when he walks up, you automatically know, is it the same thing
Mhm.
with her? Do you have the same
Yeah.
type of
I
connection?
mean, I do like I know what she needs, but it's a totally different type of approach, right? Like, and I don't know if it's an order thing, like I feel like, he's my first, like I had a boy you guys had Lucas first. So it's like, with
Yeah,
like I don't know if it's just because he is the firstborn. He has a totally different personality than she does because she
yeah.
is just like a spitfire. Like she
Mhm.
is sassy and brings all the attitude, and she is tough as nails. And then I've got this Brett who is like the softest, most loving, kind,
Yeah.
empathetic human being on the planet. And then, you have Stella, who is a totally different thing, and they all, I mean, and she's so sweet and has so many awesome, beautiful characteristics, but it's just totally different. Like it's wild to know that two children that came from the exact same gene pool are just
Mhm.
like polar opposites.
Is it? I mean, obviously, you get the same thing from Lucas and the girls.
I
They're
mean,
like,
yeah, Lucas was an angel baby since day one. Fed well, slept well, just the perfect, just perfect, perfect, perfect. And then God decided to laugh at me and give me not just one, but two.
Oh boy.
And
yeah, and in your situation, your daughter has always had a tag team partner. You know what I mean? That to just like empower her and like embolden her to make it, each of them embolden one another to make each other, even more powerful than they would be on their own.
Yeah, they're tough. They are going to be the death of me. 100%. Like and again, I want them to be tough, especially being females, but my God.
I know. You don't want, you want them to have that little bit of edge to them and that little bit of sass and a little bit of, and just the confidence, to just be like, ultimately themselves. And, but yeah, sometimes you're just like, you are wearing me out.
I think I'm just like, just bring it down a little bit, especially Aaliyah. Aaliyah is me, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So basically I just battle myself. You're just shaking your head.
Yeah. Yeah, she is. Yeah.
And so it's like, she's rough. She's so rough and exhausting. But again, I think to myself, she's me. So I'm battling myself, where Maya's more of like, she's more like my sister. She's very like, beats her own drum.
Yeah.
She's like
carefree. Just
very like I call her my little Alice in Wonderland. She's just in her own little world and just does what she wants and doesn't care what people think, which I admire. I actually admire Maya being so like, just doesn't care what people think. Like, she goes to school with mismatched clothes and everything. And Mark was like, is she going to go out like that? I'm like, you know what?
She pretty much dresses herself.
I'm like, first of all, she got dressed without me yelling at her.
Yes.
Which is great. I go, but you know what? She's so proud of herself. And this is what she wants to be. I mean, I can't.
And if there's one thing that I could offer, parents, it's just, it is to definitely just, like encourage that and just encourage them to be their own, you know what I mean? It's so easy. Like, oh my gosh, it's getting younger and younger, the peer pressure and just like the sameness and like the trends. I mean, these like 10-year-old girls are like going on, TikTok and things like that. And like feeling the need to like follow these trends and like fit in. And it's just, it's absolutely unreal what is going on with kids these days. And as parents, and as particularly as moms, we have to know, we have to be educating ourselves on what's out there so that we can, defend our children against it. And just like, just kind of encourage them to just like the internet is not real, because your children and my children, like, they don't know a world without the internet. Right. So it is real. It is real to them. Everything that's on the internet is real to them. Everybody's lives that they're seeing is better than them. Right. And now, like, the girls that have the Stanley cups and the Lululemon bags and all of the things, you know what I mean? Like, you just, I just can't encourage parents enough to just, one, not let their children be on social media at all. Right. Like, that to me, if I was going to give one piece of advice to any mom out there, or any parent in general, is just to like stand your ground and find like-minded families who, will hold you in solidarity. Because if all your kids' friends are doing it and they all have phones and they all have social media, like, of course they're going to feel left out. Right. But if you find a friend group and you're all like, okay, listen, we're not doing this. We're not all like, none of our kids are going to have phones. Then it doesn't feel so isolating and so lonely, and we can really help our kids in the next generation just to like, not be so stressed.
I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I was just doing my, nighttime skincare routine like I do. And Aaliyah was like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, just taking care of my skin, blah, blah, blah. And I said, mommy's obviously getting older, so I've got to take care of the skin even more. And she's like, well, don't I need one? And I said, you're 5. I said, your skin's beautiful. All you need is some lotion. You're good. You don't need a routine. Trust me. And then our other Maya, she's very much into makeup right now. And, she'll be like, do I look pretty? And I'm like,
Stella does that too.
I'm like, you're beautiful.
And I'm like, I don't even know where they got that. You know what I mean? Like, I can't.
I had kids talking about that. We had like a 5th grader talking about contouring. I'm like,
wow.
Contouring? I don't even know how to contour. What?
Oh my gosh. I know. It's
our kids go to they're in elementary school, and I look at these 5th graders and I'm like, they're in 5th grade?
I know.
Like,
There's no awkward stage anymore. They just jump right over it to like total
and I feel like
glam, you
they
know.
need that awkward teenage years because that builds character.
Yeah.
It does. It definitely does build character. You know, having a daughter, like, so I had my son first, right? And so it was 2 years later that Stella came along. And something about having a daughter really just impacted me because I have a tendency, like, you know, like most women, I can be very self-deprecating. I can make jokes about my appearance and I can talk about, you know, things like that. And it's something, I mean, obviously I don't want my son to like feel bad about his body, but it's just not something
Yeah.
that men deal with as much as women, right? Like
Yep.
the impact of the way that we look on it with little girls is just, it's so important. And as moms, we hold that responsibility to be like the gatekeeper. Like we have to talk good to ourselves. And, you know, even if we don't love the way our body looks or the way our hair looks or our face or our makeup or whatever, we have to be very mindful about the things that we're saying in front of our little girls, you know?
100%.
Yep.
I grew up with a mom who had I mean, she'll never admit to it, but an eating disorder. So I looked at my mom when she would talk constantly about how fat she was. Now, meanwhile, I was a very, very, very overweight kid. So looking at my mom when she kept saying she's fat, she's this and this, and I'm like, well, if she thinks she's fat, what am I?
Mm-hmm.
So I obviously wanted to make sure my girls were the polar opposite. So anytime my mom would say, oh, you know, you're getting heavy, when she would pick the girls up, I'm like, no, they're getting strong.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, do not say that in front of them, because because even Aaliyah would say to me, am I getting heavy? And I'm like, no, you're getting strong. I'm like, that's what happens. We get strong and it's hard to pick you up. I mean, that's great. We want you to become strong girls. And same thing with the F word, fat. I'm like, don't say that in front of them. I said, because even though they're so young, that does affect them. I go,
but you know, your little kids hear everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
we
yeah.
already know. Like little kids hear and absorb everything. Even if you think they're not paying attention, they are hearing it because they will humble you because they will say it somewhere out. You know, something that you said 2 weeks ago, they'll bring it up at the most inopportune time when you're like, what? You know, like, what were you talking about? But same, I had a mom. She didn't have an eating disorder, but she was so critical of her appearance because she had been small her whole life. Well, then she had my sister later on in life, right? So she had my brother and I very, very young, and there was a 12-year age gap. So she was in her 30s when she had my sister, and her body was just different, right? And so she was so hard on herself, and she would just constantly talk about her weight and being on a diet and, like, you know, all of these things. And I remember how that impacted me and how, you know, just like me always looking at myself. And I know she never meant for that to rub off on me. You know what I mean? But, you know, it's crazy how we speak to ourselves and how we view ourselves impacts our children.
It's weird because my mom and I just had this conversation last week, and I said, you know, and again, I don't blame her for, throughout my teenage years, 20s, even 30s, I had a very unhealthy relationship with my body. And I said, and again, she was like, well, I didn't mean to do that. I said, I know you weren't doing that to be an awful person, but the things you said totally affected me because throughout my life, I was pretty much overweight. So
what was I supposed to think?
What else? Yeah, exactly. So I had a very unhealthy relationship with food and with exercise and everything. So that's why I'm like, I have to undo all of that. Where
it's hard. It is hard.
It's so hard when you've grown up with that to try to like get rid of that.
Yeah. And I mean, in our generation specifically, you know, we grew up with, you know, the heroin chic, you know, Nicole Richie and Paris Hilton and, you know, Lindsay Lohan. Like if you were a celebrity and you were a woman, like they were either talking about how thin you were or how fat you were on every magazine cover all the time. It was never anything of any like depth about anyone. It was like, you know, I mean, do you guys remember, like, this is like such a vivid memory. I will never forget. There was an Us Weekly with Jessica Simpson on the cover, and she was wearing these like mom jeans. And I mean, what was she? She was probably like a size 6, maybe
she was a size 8.
Yes, and they
Yeah,
like
but
made
she
they made her feel like the way that they presented her and the way that they talked about her in the media,
Mhm.
it was like she was a whale. Do you know what I mean? Like they were
Yeah.
making her seem like she was like my 600-pound life. Um, and it was just like it's just so wild to me. And you know, and now so we're like, you know, we've come a long way. We accept bodies as they are, body acceptance and all this stuff, right? But it's still all bullshit because you still like our kids now, they always have they always have a camera on them, right? Like they
Yep.
always like somebody is always filming them. So the way that they worry about their appearance is unlike anything that we've ever had to experience. Because when we went to school, like you want to look good or whatever, but you didn't have to
Yeah.
worry about somebody taking a picture of you and like
Yeah.
putting it on
Yep.
the internet, So now these girls have to be camera ready at all times. So like the focus on their appearance is like more than it's ever been in the history of mankind, So even though it's not like a fat, skinny thing, it's an appearance thing, all
Yep.
all encompassing.
I'm so glad we grew up in a generation that didn't exist.
Oh
So
yeah,
glad. So
for
glad.
sure.
Like, but then again, it scares me because it's just going to get worse.
Yeah. I think
Mhm.
it's one of those things that we have to like kind of teach them, teach them how we grew up, but like, take
Mhm.
our experiences and kind of, like you said, we're part of that generation that, didn't have internet, but then the internet, all that stuff, social media, we kind of grew up with it. So we know what it is, what it's like
True.
before all that stuff to what
We're
it
the
is
only
now.
the elder millennial, like the millennial, we're the last generation to know what it's like to have a screen free or like a social media free
Yeah.
childhood. I shouldn't say screen free because we had TVs and stuff, but
Yeah.
Right.
right.
Yeah.
But a social media free childhood, right? An
Yeah.
internet free childhood. And it's just the impact on our children is just absolutely just devastating, to be quite honest. Social media is great in so many ways. We wouldn't be talking right now if it
Yeah.
weren't for social media, right? Like, well, I've
Oh,
met all
yeah.
of you guys through social media. I've met some of the most amazing people and had some of the most incredible experiences, learned so much. But I'm a 38-year-old woman, right?
Mhm.
Whereas like these 10, 11, 12-year-old girls, like there's absolutely no reason. Like they just do not need social media. You know what I mean?
Wanna
Like
be
they
an
need to
influencer.
Yeah.
Yes, they don't need influencers. They don't need influence. Like their influence should be like the friends that they have in real life and their parents,
Yeah.
And like that's it. It's
Yeah.
man, it's a whole soapbox. I know this is like Mother's Day, but I mean, I think this is just talking about like our I mean, the things that we have to deal with as mothers that our mothers didn't have to deal with, right? Like my mom was like, I wonder if Sheena's going to come home from the freaking creek before, before
Yeah.
bedtime. You know what I mean? Like it was like a totally different set of worries than
Totally
what we
different
have
world.
today. I mean, we've never been closer to our kids, like as far as like proximity, like they're in our house, they're everywhere we
Yeah.
are, but we've never been more disconnected from them.
Yeah, we were the
Yeah, you're right.
what do they call it? Like the lost generation, essentially. Like it's just like, there's always, if you ever like scroll on TikTok or any social media, there's always those like millennials or Gen Z that's like, how come no one ever brings up like the Gen Xers? How come they're always like, they're leaving the Gen X? Because if you ever see like the conversations, it's always millennials versus, the, what do you call it? The
Gen
boomers.
Z. Oh,
Gen
boomers.
Z, like they completely skip Gen X. Like it's
Yeah.
just those three groups, and it's like there's a reason why, because it's like we grew up in an area where we obviously, I mean, personally, I don't care about most of that stuff. I could give a crap, and like the other part of it is we grew up in a time where you had to do things in person. Like you had to actually speak to people in person. You had to get bullied in person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It's
had to
amazing how
totally
much
attend to
less
person.
bullying there is when you have to say something to somebody's face. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like if I was going to tell you that you were an ugly, horrible troll to your face, I probably wouldn't say that,
Yeah.
but it's so easy to say behind the screen.
Yeah, and it was like, the other thing is like we grew up in a time where all like pretty much anything that's like offensive now wasn't offensive back then.
Oh, yeah.
So anything, like we have that mentality. So if we're in a situation where we have to like kind of like, obviously if it's like a bully situation or someone's like talking to you, you're gonna say something back. It's probably not gonna be a nice thing that you're gonna say, because we come from that era where it's like that's what was funny, and that's what would normally just humble somebody, if whatever joke that would be. Nowadays do that.
Oh,
And then,
words are violence now.
oh yeah,
You know,
definitely. I mean, yeah, especially like I said, we had to. I mean, like I said, grew up in a time where like
we
grew up
went
in
from
high school.
sticks and stones and words will never hurt me to words are violence.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, like words can definitely hurt you, but it's like, and the other thing too is like we always try to with because we talked about this earlier with like our kids being influenced on different things like they were like watching like all the YouTube kids and all that stuff, and those like the young influencers, the ones that are like buying toys and doing like
Bro,
unboxings and all that
First of all,
stuff, and like
they're not buying them.
no, I know they're
Yes.
not. I know they're not buying them. Like,
Yes, I keep telling the kids, these kids are not these. They're not.
And that's
buying them.
well, and that's the other thing. Like the parenting on that, like the moms and the dads on that aren't. They're just buying them whatever they want, and they're doing all these things with them.
No,
It's
the
like
parents are making a profit out of it.
that's not how it is.
I know.
Sorry,
Oh,
kid.
yeah. The whole family. The whole child exploitation YouTube influencer thing. I won't even get onto it, but it's just it's
a whole other subject.
Yeah, the whole like family vloggers or whatever, and it's fine. Like if you want to share your life on social media, and I mean, I share a lot of things, right? But I just feel like there's no like our children can't consent to a lot of this, right? And it's just like I feel like it's so performative. Like the way that those child influencers play with the toys that they have and like that's not organic. You can tell there's no like I've been around a lot of kids don't play like that. That's not how children organically interact with one another or interact with their toys, right? Like this is all performative to make the toy seem fun and exciting and cool, and it's something about it touches our kids' brains. It just turns them into a freaking zombie. Like we don't we there was a brief moment in time where we were experimenting with YouTube Kids, and it was like Brett would just get this look in his eye where he just looked like he was just like zoned out, and I'm like F that, like no freaking way, and it would just cause him to have like these outbursts. And he was watching this show where Vlad and Nikki were these like kids get all these toys and stuff like you said, and I mean I was just like and then he started asking for everything. Well, can I get that? Can I get that? Can I get that? And I'm like, okay, nope, no more Vlad and Nikki, and we just cut it all out, and I have no regrets at all.
No, I hate every single bit of it. Hate. There's this one girl that the girls would watch. Her name was what, Nastia?
Nastia or something like that.
And I called her Nasty because it was just nothing but a little brat.
She was like mean to the mean to the dad.
She was
like,
mean to the dad, but yet the dad would buy her everything she wanted, and I'm just like, this is not like she's a little brat.
And the dad was like a goof, like he would just like like do
he gave me like
they're gonna come at me like that. No, don't even think about it.
Well, not just that he gave me vibes that I didn't
no, but that was like the thing. If they're watching that stuff and they see like her acting like that, then they think they can act like that, but then they think like I'm gonna act like that or she's gonna act like that. And it's like no, no, that's not how it works.
I said, this is not real life. I said
yes.
So I say we're not watching this nasty show. She's nothing but a little brat. I'm not raising brats. I'm not. Sorry, not happening. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not against like my kids watch movies. They watch, they have their shows that they watch. I'm not like anti-screen time. I just feel like it has to be very curated and like because if you just start like letting your kids get on there, Bluey. Perfect.
Or wrestling.
Fine.
No.
or wrestling, exactly.
Wrestling can be tough sometimes.
But dude, YouTube Kids is such just a rabbit hole of just
we tried that for a little bit. It didn't work. What? YouTube Kids we
had to just get rid of
they were just fighting.
Yes, that's what we did.
Yeah,
I just said to him, I said, get rid of it.
Yeah, because I was like,
I'm done.
Yeah, we had regular YouTube. They were finding all this stuff, and we were like, no, let's get rid of it. And I was like, oh, let's try YouTube Kids, but they were pretty much just finding the same stuff on YouTube Kids.
Garbage, straight freaking mind garbage.
Oh yeah, man.
I kept saying, I'm like, you're losing brain cells. I go, my kids. I go, you kids are smarter than this. I'm like, we're done. I said, we're not going to sit here watching kids open toys. We're done. So
I know.
I'm like, we're done.
Before we get to that, I want to get to. Oh, go ahead. You can go.
No, I was just gonna say I've seen the direct impact of that. We have some, kids that are close to us, like our, friends and families, kids and stuff that are, they just kind of have unrestricted access to like watching YouTube Kids and the games and the social media and all that, and their attention span is just like nothing, like absolutely nothing. Like they can never sit down. Like we had one of them was coming over and she was staying the night with us, and she could not sit down and watch a movie. Like my kids will sit down and watch a movie start to finish. And like this little girl, and we love her, I wouldn't talk bad about her or her parents, but she would like, there was no way she was going to sit down for an hour and watch one particular movie. And like her focus was like next to nothing.
Yeah.
And I've seen it with other kids too. And it's heartbreaking,
Yeah. Dang. Yeah. We kind of like trained our kids, like, because we do like every Sunday we do a movie night.
Mm-hmm.
So, like we kind of like every Sunday we watch a movie. So like at the beginning they were like, they would be in the movie, then they were just like, obviously their kids are gonna take off, disappear.
Yeah,
whatever.
and that's one thing. If they take off and go play or whatever, you know what I mean. But this was like jumping from one thing to the next thing to the next. Just it was like, it wasn't just like that she lost interest in the movie. It was like, just like couldn't, like, she would pick up a toy and play with it for a second, and then pick up another toy and then like go over, and then start running around. Like it was manic. It felt manic, like the energy was just like not. It wasn't like they were just like, whatever, we're gonna go play. My kids,
Lucas is like that with obviously, especially when we're watching like wrestling, he'll like want to like, obviously he's watching it, he'll want to grab his figures and start like playing alongside and stuff like that.
Yeah, Brett does that too, and that's and that's a really healthy child development like activity. Like they can focus better and retain information better if they're moving their hands or fidgeting or coloring or something. You know what I mean? So like, if you're reading your kids a book, give them some Play-Doh, give them some wrestling figures. It may feel like they're not paying attention to you, but they're actually able to retain that information and absorb that information better when they're moving their hands and like, moving their bodies a little bit. So that's a totally normal and healthy development characteristic or trait. So
I want to, since we're on wrestling, so obviously our kids, even our girls watch wrestling. I want to ask you, like, how do you like explain to like Brett like that? Obviously it's not real, they're not doing this certain
he
thing.
doesn't know. I mean, he doesn't really like, he doesn't. I mean, we haven't like broached the fake, you know what I mean? Like he doesn't know this. Yeah, like I feel like he still is kind of in that that mode where like, I mean, he may get it a little bit, but I don't think he realizes that the matches are like booked. You know what I mean? Like we've never really talked about it. So it's kind of like, Santa Claus.
You let him watch. So do you see like any like, does it like enhance him at all? Like when he's watching wrestling, or is he just like focused in on it? Does it like, does he get like excited? Does he like run around all crazy and stuff after? Or is it just like, he just watches wrestling and then that's it?
No,
he loses his mind. He's doing like wrestling movies, like doing freaking
1000%. Yeah. When Brett watches wrestling, and sometimes he's doing wrestling while he's watching wrestling. Like he's got a big Snoopy doll that he wrestles with.
Oh yeah, see, all right.
While he's watching wrestling. So 100%. And he can watch the documentaries. He watches that kind of stuff, but I don't think it clicks with him. I think he thinks when they're fighting in the ring, like it's like who's tougher. You know what I mean? Like this guy was really the better fighter, right? Like I feel like because he sees like all the like I said, like the documentaries and stuff, and sees the guys interacting like behind the scenes and whatnot. But I just don't think it's really clicked for him that like, oh, somebody's actually like determining these matches.
I don't think Lucas isn't that far.
No, I just basically say you keep doing that, you're gonna snap your neck and you're dead. That's what I keep telling him. Because he can get really like, I'm waiting for like CPS to come to my house because he has bruises all over himself.
Yeah, he does like,
I know.
He's so rough with himself. And
the craziest
and I keep telling him like, you keep doing that, you're gonna snap your neck and you're dead.
I know. I told Stella and Brett too. I was like, guys, it's about to be short season. Can we like take it easy on like the bruises on the legs? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to get the police called. Right?
I'm waiting for the phone calls from school.
Is everything okay at home? Yeah, it is.
Because I just look at his, I'm like, dude, your legs. And he's like, no, I hurt myself so much. I'm like, yeah, that's why I keep telling you to calm down. I know you love the wrestling and that's great and all. However, like
he does execute a lot of the moves pretty good though.
He does.
Retention.
He does.
Oh yeah,
frog flash.
He does.
Yeah. Well, at their age, their joints are just like basically like Play-Doh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like super malleable. Like they haven't been fully formed yet. So they can just like tombstone and like land on their knees and do all of the things.
Yeah, no, she's just saying, she I hope they don't have
My
yours,
joints.
yeah,
Because I'm a disaster.
bad hips, bad knees,
Bad
all that stuff.
everything.
Yeah, she seems like she's been wrestling for like forever. Like she's like Mick Foley. You ever see Mick Foley like walking
Yeah.
around?
Yeah.
Literally. Although my hips are because of the girls.
That's true.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did say that.
Yeah,
For sure.
they beat me up.
So as far as like I mean, you might have hit on this already. So as far as like personality is concerned, how do you? We'll start with you. How do you like cater? Do you cater to both of their different personalities, or when you're like doing your like your teachable moments, you kind of make it general, or do you kind of tailor it to how they are? How does that work for you?
It depends on the situation, but yeah, there's different ways. I can approach Brett totally differently than I approach Stella. Like I can approach him in a way that's like very matter of fact and just kind of like, dude, like, no, this isn't cool. Don't do that. Right. You know what I mean? Like we don't do that. That wasn't kind, or, that wasn't nice or whatever. With Stella, I have to be much more soft. Like I have to be, because if I approach her with like this, like, no, you shouldn't have done that. You know what I mean? Like that was not the right thing to do. Oh, it like sends her into like big emotion city where she's just going to either get really mad or she's going to start crying or going to start screaming. And so, yeah, you do have to cater, and it's all different all the time. Again, like the mental gymnastics of motherhood and the mental like load is just absolutely bananas. So
yeah. How's your approach? I don't get to see like all the time when you're like with the kids. So like, how do you like?
Lucas is definitely more sensitive.
Oh yeah, no, he definitely
He
is.
is definitely more sensitive, where I have to be more calmer with him.
Yeah.
The girls have a fuck you personality where I have to give them the like, listen, I'm the alpha female, which is again always difficult. My girls seriously are the toughest girls ever. It's like exhausting, but I have to be the alpha female with them. I have to be like, not happening.
Yeah.
With Lucas, I have to be a lot more gentle with him because he's very sensitive. He's a very empathetic child.
Yeah,
he is like the sweetest little human being, where my girls are like, I remember one day I said, I go, your daughters are bitches. And he's like, call them bitch. I go, yeah, they're being a bitch. I can't stand them right now.
See, that's so funny because Brett is the same way as Lucas, very empathetic, very kind. But he like with him, when you're giving him like instruction or like giving him like feedback, you can be very matter of fact. Whereas like Stella is a stone cold killer, but you have to like approach her by walking on eggshells. So yeah, it's funny how, even though they have the same personalities, like the approach has to be different.
I know like Lucas is like really like literal when it comes to like directions,
very
like you have to be like specific, like
Lucas
exact.
Lucas is gonna be that kid like that nobody likes, because he's so like
awful.
A matter like in like school, you'd be like, well, technically, blah 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 blah. He's gonna be that kid.
We went on this whole thing. It was we have this. What was that? What's that book with the clock where you can like actually change the hands of the clock? Is that a Bluey book?
No, that was Cars.
Yeah, so we have it's a Cars. So we have this Cars book where you can like it teaches you how to tell time with
how to tell time,
the big hand. And it was like a huge argument with him about like when it's 8. What was it like when it's turning 8:30 or something like that? Where's the little hand point? And we were like, she's telling him like, no, it looks like this. It's like the little hand's on the 8. And then he's like, no, it starts to move up a little bit.
And I'm like, oh my God.
And it's like, that's so literal. Like, why are you thinking of like, we know the hands that move as the big hands that like, why is that a big, can't you just take it as is, as we're showing you?
He's like, I said to Marco, I said, he's going to be that kid that nobody likes in school because he has to be like, well, technically, blah, 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 blah.
Well, then his teacher was like, his teacher was telling him that's right. Like, it's like, the little hand starts to move up a little bit. And we're telling him no. And he's like, so you're telling me my teacher's wrong? And then we're like, no, we're not telling you. So it's like, now we're like, we're making him like,
then like sometimes teachers can be wrong.
And it's like, oh, geez. So like, have you ever like ran into that like situation where like they, obviously they're learning, they're like, they're learning on their own and stuff like that. But like, they have their own idea of like what is going on. But then you come in and just like
Oh yeah.
Completely derail it.
Their level of confidence and being wrong sometimes is inspiring.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
it is.
There's sometimes that I'm like, I really wish that I could go in with the confidence that you guys have when I'm absolutely in the wrong, you know? Like,
What about the infamous mammals and
Oh,
animals?
mammals and animals. Yeah. So like, yeah, we went on a whole thing about what if we're humans are animals.
And I kept saying, yeah, we're animals, but we're also mammals.
Yeah.
And then you kept literally
Yeah. I was
fighting
like,
with me over it. And
yeah.
Lucas thought it was the
I was like,
funniest.
well, it's categories. We're all like,
yeah, well, we're mammals, but we're not animals.
yeah. So it's like we're all like, it's all different. But it was like it
Yeah.
was all three of us, like me, her, and Lucas were just
like
like,
a literal fight over this. Like over that. I'm like, but we're mammals.
So like, here's another question. So do you ever see in your kids like different? Do you ever see like traits of like other family members in your in like? And if you do, the second part of it, do you feel like you should approach them in the way that you would approach that family member?
Well, it's funny that you say that because my grandmother, Stella, who I named Stella after, she passed away before Stella was born, but she was like, my other mom, right? Like,
Yeah.
she was a huge influence on my life. And so, we knew when we found out we were having a girl that we were going to name her after my grandma, we were going to name her Stella. And it is just like, I don't know, depending, no matter what your beliefs are as far as like the afterlife or whatever, I'm like, dude, something happened when Stella came into this world, and like Ma, I called her Ma like
Yeah.
sprinkled her personality into Stella. Like Stella, my grandmother, like she was always on the phone with somebody, would talk to anybody, you know what I mean? Always wrote the news for like the local community and all this stuff. And I mean, Stella never stops talking. Never stops talking. And I'm like, "Oh my god, she is the mouth of the South, just like her great grandma." You know what I mean? And it's like so funny to me how she has those, and like she's so dramatic. Like if she gets hurt, it's just like, "Oh," and Ma was kind of like that too. Like if anything was wrong, it was always like, "Oh God," And so it's so funny to me how I don't know, it's just weird, more than anything. I'm like, "Oh my god." Like she got her Stella dust sprinkled on her.
That's how. Well, my sister, she was named after my grandmother, Marilyn. So that's a name you don't really hear nowadays. But yeah, I mean, was she like my grandmother? Not really. That I can remember anyway. Do you see that with
Yeah.
like
I don't think it
any?
happens all the time, but it
Yeah.
definitely happened with Stella. Like I'm just like, whoa.
No, mine reminds me so much of your mom.
Maya does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. I guess.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's true. She
Like,
does.
just does her own thing, doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, that's how my mom. Yeah, my mom was
Just
more like
I just do what I want.
Yeah.
Don't give a fuck.
Speak your mind.
Yep.
Don't let anyone tell you any different.
Yep.
If you have to say something, just say it. No, like obviously say if you have nothing nice to say, don't say it at all. She was kind of like a little bit of the opposite. Like if there's a point where you do have to say the thing that you're not supposed to say, just say it. That's how she brought me up to be and stuff like that. So like actually let's talk about like moms, like because we're gonna do like the past or present. How
Okay.
like let's talk about moms. Like how is Sheena? How is your mom? Like how do you feel like she brought you up, and did she give you all the life lessons you need, or are you still getting those life lessons from her?
Oh yeah. So my mom, it's she had me when she was 18 years old, which is just bizarre to me. You know what I mean? Like, I've always known that, but like until you become a mom and until you become like an adult, you can't really even wrap your mind around how wild that is that she like had me when she was 18, and then she had my
Yeah.
little brother, and she was, running her own businesses and like doing all of this stuff and working full time, and like I'm just like, how did you do it all? You know what I mean? And I have like such an admiration and an appreciation for my mom. And like she's, her situation is totally different. I stay
Yeah.
home with my kids, and I homeschool them and do all that, right? And my mom was like working her ass off like daylight to dark, and freaking like I don't know. It was crazy how, you know, how it's so different, but I still like feel like I gained so much from her, even though, you know, she wasn't home with me all the time. I went to public school. I rode the freaking bus. You know what I mean? Like I was just like a regular normal kid, but I think just the level of like independence that she had to let me have because of the situations of her, you know, her working and doing all of the things, right? And my mom was always just a very kind and loving person and would like give the you know, my mom's still alive. I don't know why I'm referring to her in the past. She's still alive, but she will give the shirt off of her back to anybody, you know, and she just really instilled that in me to like be kind to anybody, like, to everybody, right? Like it like doesn't matter, don't discriminate, just always lead with kindness. And that's just something that I've always, you know, held near and dear to my heart. But I think it's because I consider myself like I'm like, oh, I'm a wild and free mom. I let my kids like, you know, just be feral and do all this. But I'm like, my mom was the real wild and free mom because she just like I was like, like I said, like down in the freaking woods. She didn't even know where the hell I was. Like I would never let my kids just go down in the woods and like, you know, and be gone, you know. So yeah, I get a lot of my personality and a lot of, you know, my character traits from my mom for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I know, I mean, I know your mom, so but you can speak you can speak more about like, you know, any like life lessons she's given you, any you know,
I mean,
how she brought you up.
I mean, I grew up in a very different home. I grew up with an alcoholic father who was constantly on the road. He was a truck driver. He was a retired truck driver. So my mom basically raised my sister and I, as I always say, a single mom, in the way of like my dad was never around. My mom is probably the most caring, hardworking woman I've ever met in my life. She would do everything and anything for anybody, which can be a great thing, but yet not so great because people take advantage of that.
That's my mom. Yeah.
And my mother's been taken advantage of many times. So I've always been a people pleaser growing up because that's how I was raised. And then, you know, realized that's not the way you have to be. Trying to think what else. I mean, I don't know, she's been through a lot in her life and I admire that. However, I don't want to be that.
Yeah. Oh, there are definitely parts of my mom that I'm like, I think she's a wonderful woman, but there are definitely parts of my mom that I'm just like, you know what? Like that generational cycle is going to end.
Yeah.
Oh
with
yeah.
me. You know what I mean?
I remember as I'm growing up and seeing the dynamics of my parents and just thinking, I don't want that.
Yeah, that's tough.
I don't want the father of my children to be my dad. I don't want to be my mom, who was always the pushover, who would always make excuses for my father. I mean, to this day, you know, it's still, they're still together, and it's just, she's always making excuses. And I'm like, why do you want to be like that?
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, I've even said to my dad, I'm like, you know, you have 2 daughters and you have 2 granddaughters, and like, why do you treat us like this? And I mean, again, he's the way he is and whatever, but she did the best she could with what she had, and I'm very grateful for that. And you know,
I know, but doesn't it, like, now that you're a mom of, you know, you have 3 kids and I have 2, like, when you think about all the things that your mom was doing and all the things you still did, like, you know, I mean, I played basketball, I played sports, I did all, you know, all those types of things. And I'm like, how did she like have the energy and the time and the, like, you know, because I am beat. I have 2 little kids and I'm just like, I am freaking beat at the end of the day. And, you know, I mean, I stay home with them. Like she was going to work, then coming home and then making dinner and then doing that, you know, the whole thing. And then you go to bed, wake up, start over again. And I'm just like, wow.
So my mom, my grandparents lived with us. So my mom was taking care of my sister and I, my grandparents, and then she took care of my 2 younger cousins while my aunt and uncle worked.
We always had cousins that were staying at our house. Or,
Yes. So she's taking care of all of them. Then she would work part-time at Toys R Us, night shift. And I mean, even to this day, my mom's 68 and she has more energy. Like she comes in this house and is just doing whatever. And I'm just like,
yeah. My mom could
like,
work
how?
me under the rug. Like, you
Yeah,
know what I
oh,
mean?
yeah.
Like she could work me under the rug. And I'm just like, oh my God. I mean, she still runs a restaurant to this day and like gets up, works the restaurant all freaking day, goes and has like all these different contracts. So she has to make
Yeah.
food for like all these different organizations, comes home, like does a million things for a million other freaking people. And then I'm just like, what?
And my mom's a massage therapist. So that's a lot of like, work. And, she'll be like, yeah, I did, 3 90-minute massages. And she comes in here, just walks around. She's like, here I am. And I'm just like,
can't even imagine.
I know.
okay, how?
They were just built different back then.
Very different.
And that's actually like a good like segue is like what's like the comparison now, like kind of talked about like your moms and stuff like that. Like, what do you think the differences are now between like how you mom now and how your mom's mommed?
I mean,
Was
I
that
think
a mom back then?
well, I think us, myself and Kimberly, we are unfortunately influenced. We know what all other moms are doing, right? Because we have social media, so we can see all the other moms and all the little snippets into their life about how they're better than us and how their kids are better than ours, and how much we suck and how much like and our parents didn't have that. They were going to work, taking the kids to school, coming and getting the pit. You know what I mean? Like they were not so concerned, and they weren't over parenting us. You know what I mean? Whereas I feel like, we're in this thing. We're like, well, should I try gentle parenting? Should I try authoritative parenting? Am I ruining my kid by yelling at them? Oh my God, did I spank them? Are they going to need therapy? Should I never, you know what I mean? Like it's the amount of like I said before, like mental gymnastics and the things that you have to like, deal with and decide and, feel like you have to prove it to people nowadays as a mom is just mind boggling. Right. Like, and it's all this, like, again, like we talked about with the kids, it's performative, right? Like, everybody's got to like take their kid out to the park and they're all dressed in their cute little outfits. And, you got to get that little clip so you can post it on Instagram. So everybody knows what a good mom you are, even though getting those kids out of the house, you were screaming at them, throwing them in the car. None of them had shoes on. You know what I mean? Like, it's
true.
Like,
so true.
But it's just like, we're just as bad. We're being influenced by nonsense, and I feel like it really causes a lot of moms to let go of that motherly instinct and to let go of their gut and outsource that to influencers and outsource that to, quote unquote, like experts. And like, I'm just like, no, you have a motherly intuition. You know what I mean? And like, you have a gut instinct for a reason, but you're so distracted by all the noise and all the bullshit. You know what I mean? Like one of the biggest things for me is like, as a mom, like that I've learned over the, 7 years that I've been a mom is that the kids need so much less shit than we feel like. I mean, if you go into like the baby business when you're about to have a baby, you can spend a fucking $1 million on shit for your baby. They don't need that. No. You know what I mean? Like, as a mom, what you need to do is stop worrying about what freaking super bougie bouncer and stroller you're going to buy for your baby and get yourself some postpartum care. Get yourself get yourself a meal delivery service for after when you're, after you have a baby postpartum. Hire a doula. You know what I mean? Take care of yourself because all that baby needs is love. And you know what I mean? Love and a dry diaper. You know what I mean? And so it's like, but we're just like trying to like, like the baby business has become this $1 billion behemoth, right? Where it's just like, you need this and this and this. And if you have this, you're going to be a good mom. If you have this, it's going to be so much easier for you. And and we're so fucking stressed out that we have all of this shit and we can't even use it because we're so worried. You know what I mean? Like we're so overwhelmed and stressed out that like all the stuff does nothing for us.
And half the time the kid doesn't even like it.
Yeah. Oh my God. The amount of stuff that
you get the mama row that every, you have to have that. And it's like, your kid hates it. I mean, the girls hate it just a typical swing.
Yes.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
I mean, just a typical swing that just, again, I got a hand-me-down that one of my friends actually had twin girls and always gave me everything. And I mean, the girls hated it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'd spend all this money. I would have spent all this money for nothing, where it's like the kids, like you said, just need the basic, just give them a onesie, give them a diaper.
And
They'll
this
live.
and developmentally, it's better for them to just lay on the floor and look around and use their neck muscles and use their body muscles instead of putting them in these freaking $400 container systems, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like it's way more beneficial to them, like just to lay on the blanket on the floor, right? And
I
we're
tell
like,
my
oh my
kids
God, we
now.
need the perfect swing. Like, no, you
No.
don't.
Nobody can. I tell my kids now because they'll be like, "What are we doing today?" I go, "Guys, it's okay to be bored. It's okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
I'm not here to do a schedule for every single thing. Every day we're doing something.
Well, and you
Be
know what?
bored.
That
Figure
just
it
brought it. That just brought another thought to the forefront. Like thinking about, like, my mom never entertained me. Do you know
Nope.
what I mean? Like my
No.
mom was not the type
No.
of mom who like sat down and played with me or like, entertained me or like, did all of this stuff, right? Again, just busy. And she was just of a different generation where that wasn't even a thing. We entertained ourselves. We found friends. We were bored. We did things.
Yep.
Now there's so much pressure on moms. We don't have a village anymore. Motherhood is so isolating and there's so much pressure on us to constantly be entertaining our children. Like, are you reading to them? Are you building blocks with them? Are you playing
Yeah.
Small World with them? Are you sitting down and watching movies and cuddling and are you baking cookies with your kid? And it's like, oh, no, you know what I mean?
No.
Like, I believe in quality time, but like it is absolutely suffocating to like feel like you just can't add up because you're not doing all the things all the damn time. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Oh, I
it's
tell Marco all the time, I'd rather put a bullet in my head than play Barbies.
dude,
I'll
imagine
do it. I
rather-
mean, I usually end up
You
doing
do a
it.
better job than I
Yeah.
do. I would rather put a bullet in my head than play Barbies.
It's funny. Seth does a good job too. I guess it's he'll play action figures with Brett and like do little stuff like. But like when I'm like Small World, like imaginative play like that, I
Yeah.
can't. Like you said, it absolutely like.
I just do my own thing. I don't play by
No,
the
because
rules.
Yes.
That's what
I get yelled at because I'm not putting the Barbie where she should be, and I'm just like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
out.
No, they're
If
just
the-
like, I just
And
tell
you
them,
feel
no.
like you feel like you're such a failure. I like this specific instance, Brett, I always, and I'm not even like a crafty, like, putting like little crafts together for my kids, but I felt like that's what I'm like, oh my God, but that's what good moms do. Good moms
Yeah.
do like little popsicle stick, things and like little handprint turkeys and all this stuff. Right.
Oh yeah.
And Brett was never really into it. He was never really into like the arts and crafts and the coloring and all that kind of stuff. And so I was like, oh my God, like I've failed him in some way. Like he's not developmentally, like he doesn't want to color. Like what's wrong with him?
Yeah.
And it's funny because he like in the last like year. And so this was like when he was like 3 and 4. Right. And now he's 6 going on 7. And now he loves to draw. Like he will just go like,
Yeah.
I just gave up on it. Right. And now he like goes and gets his art pad and he'll draw and he'll color and he like does all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, like I didn't have to push that on him. Like he just decided that was what he liked to do. You know what I mean? When it became developmentally appropriate for him to hold a freaking crayon, he was like, oh, this is fun. Right. Whereas like I'm trying to shove a fucking crayon in a 2-year-old's hand who's like, what are you doing? Like
It's true. When Lucas was learning how to read, he was getting Lucas is very much a perfectionist, where because he could not read immediately, he was failing. And I'm like, look, you've got to learn. This is how we learn, X, Y, and Z. I said and he would say to me like how much he hated reading. I said, once you find something you're interested in, you will love reading. I promise you. I'm like, Mommy loves to read. I will sit and read if I could for days. So once he finally got into like, now he's into the solar system. I mean, he'll just sit here and read, and he'll read a whole book to me. And I'm like, see, you found your again, we never put pressure on them when it came to, I said, eventually you're going to find your little niche, and you're going to love it.
And it explodes them. Like when they're reading about something they're interested in, they are retaining that information, and they're understanding, right? Like it's the words make sense, that you know what I mean? Like everything that they're reading makes sense. Whereas like if they're just reading a story about something that they don't care about, it's just words on a page. Whereas like
that was me.
It's like a whole concept. Like when they start to read about some things that they're interested in, it really, really helps them to just like, figure it out and retain that information and learn it.
That's why I used to hate summer reading, because we were required to read certain books where I'm just like, I have no care for this.
Yeah.
It's like I'd rather read a book I want to read.
Yeah, and I want to like, give a disclaimer out to all of the, parents that may be listening to this. Like if your child is 5 and they're not reading yet, it's okay. Despite
Yeah,
what the public
yeah,
school
yeah,
system may tell you, it's okay, right?
yeah,
A lot of other countries whose child population is, more intelligent on paper than our current population, they don't even start teaching kids to read till like 7 or 8, right?
yeah,
So
And I
it's
think
like,
it's also different. Like my girls, they, I mean, I don't even know where this came from. I mean, they're in kindergarten right now, and they read so well.
yeah. They're already like, yeah. It's like I
Like
think
they're
they
already
start.
reading. They're already like reading books
mhm,
to me, where it's just like, oh my god, where did this come from? Where
absolutely.
Lucas, it took him a little more time, which is fine. We just
Yeah,
said this is,
See, that was
everybody
me.
works differently.
I never really did a lot of formal stuff with, preschool stuff with Brett as far as like reading or letter
yeah, yeah,
recognition.
Yeah.
And then when I started it, when he was 6, like when we started doing kindergarten, like he picked it up like that and he started
yeah,
reading like that. You know what I mean? Whereas like I could have exhausted myself when
Yep.
he
yeah,
was 2 or 3, trying to like force him to like
Right.
blend and read words, right? And some kids it comes naturally. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like
yeah,
you said, like with the girls, they have an older brother. They probably hear more reading, hear more
yeah,
words. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And
yeah,
so
Exactly.
it's going to come easier to him. And I hope the same happens for Stella, right? Like she sits in on our lessons, like she's
yep,
picking up, I'm hoping she's picking up all of these, all of these things. So
yeah,
yeah, I'm hoping it'll be easier for her too.
I mean, that's like potty training, where it's like that constant like pressure of like, oh my God, he's 3, he's still not. It's like
Yes.
he will potty train. Like there's no kid that goes into elementary school with diapers. Like
Yes.
they will
Do you
figure
think
it
that my
out.
mom, yeah. Do you think that my mom knew when any other kids were reading? Any other kids in my class were
No,
reading? No. Do you think my mom knew when any other kids were potty trained?
no,
No. Do you know what I mean? But now we know, like, Susie down the street, oh my God, her daughter's the
yeah,
same age as mine and she's
yeah.
already potty trained or she's reading or she
yeah,
knows all of her colors.
yeah.
It's, you just cannot like
It's
stop
different.
comparing
And
yourself. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
they did the whole episode on Bluey about, the episode when, it was about Bluey learning how to walk, and she was like in
Oh,
competition with all
the other mom,
the other
yeah,
mom that
because Bluey was
her
taking too
baby was
long.
walking and stuff like that. And she'd crawl, but her baby was walking, and then
Yeah,
Bluey started walking, but then her baby was like started talking. Like, so it was like as a mom, she was like,
I'm
am I
failing.
fit?
Mm-hmm.
Which is like we got to kind of talk about that because like
No, mom
the
guilt. If the mom
that the mom
guilt is
guilt thing,
awful.
but the Bluey's like those
Oh,
episodes are like they're very like obviously that's a kid show, but
oh,
at the
they're the
same
best.
time,
For the
it's like
parents.
it's like
Oh,
real world like parenting. Like, why would they do? They did an episode like I just said, like about her having like mom guilt about her not like her baby not being able to like walk right away, or am I doing something wrong? Taking her to the doctors, is there something
yep.
wrong with her? That type of stuff. Like, do you like do you like get that like
Well,
kind of like
I mean, I took Lucas to the.
yeah,
Remember, I took Lucas. So Lucas was 2, and he still wasn't saying any words.
yeah,
So of course, I started getting nervous. Um, I do have autism on my dad's side, so took him to the pediatrician. His pediatrician, who I absolutely adore, he's like, he's fine. There's nothing. I'm not concerned. You're not. Boys take a little longer. I said he was like, trust me, once he starts talking, he'll never shut up. And sure enough,
yeah,
like a
it
couple of
was
weeks
great.
later, he hasn't shut up since.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
again, just like, what am I doing something wrong? Where it's like he's 2. I mean, even with the girls were what? No, they weren't even 1 yet.
oh,
No,
they're
no,
like
no, no.
walking on their knees. You mean?
No, no. So the girls had to go into early intervention
Yeah,
for
that's right.
speech.
During the pandemic, yeah.
Oh,
And
God.
we were about to actually do the early intervention when the pandemic hit. So then obviously they were like,
Yeah.
oh, well, we can do Zoom. I said, there's no way I'm going to be able to get 2
2
1.5 year
babies.
olds
Yeah.
Yeah,
to sit and do Zoom. I said, but look, I'm open to anything. Let's just try it. Obviously did not work. So then once they started opening up a little bit, they're like, okay, so they can go to the school, but the teacher will be wearing a mask, and so will they. I said, well, they're not.
So this is
wearing
pointless.
yeah,
masks. I said, also, how are they supposed to be able to like?
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
they have to watch somebody talk.
yes.
yeah,
Mhm.
So that's kind of pointless. So I said, you know what? Forget it. So then I'm like, okay, I got to figure something out. And the one great thing about YouTube was Miss Rachel.
Yeah,
Miss Rachel actually taught my girls how to speak. So I didn't have to, but again, it's like, okay, what else? I mean, I'm failing because it's like they should be doing this, but to me, it makes no sense to have somebody talking to them with a mask on. They can't see their mouth, which is the important part of speech. So I'm like, all right, let me figure it out and just throw on YouTube. And this Miss Rachel came on and literally taught my girls how to talk.
I know it's crazy how much we just doubt ourselves. And, as now as a more seasoned mom, I feel like I'm very confident in like the decisions that I make. And like, you know what I mean? Like I don't judge other moms for their choices. And I'm just like, if somebody's judging me, then, I pretty much have the like F them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like obviously, I would never want anyone to think a bad thought about my kid. It would hurt my feelings, you know what I mean? But I also like if somebody doesn't like a parenting decision that I make, I'm confident and I'm very grounded in those decisions. That I'm just like, well, I'm sorry. Like, you know what I mean? Like you love us or hate us, this is just who we are and this is how we do things. Whereas like early on, I felt like I was always like, well, should I do this or should I do that? You know what I mean? And I just felt like I was always kind of like questioning that intuition that I had. And now I've just come into my own where I'm kind of like, and there's still times when you doubt yourself, you know what I mean? And you're like, oh my God, like, am I doing the right thing? But it's not where I'm like actively seeking other people's advice. You know what I mean? As far as like, what should I do? Right.
Yep.
That's why when people always say to me, what's your advice? I'm like, I don't do advice. I'm like, this is like one of my friends, she's about to do potty training with her son. I said, look this is the book I used. It was like the Bible for me when it came to potty training. It worked for my kids. Try it out.
Yeah, that's how I frame.
I hope it works for you.
Yeah.
But I can't, I don't like to give advice because everybody parents different. Everybody's kid is different.
Yep.
I always say there's no such thing as a bad parent unless you're mentally,
obviously,
abusing a child, then yes, you're a terrible person. But other than that, I don't do the whole like.
I'm totally open to being like, this is what we did. Or if I ask somebody, like, if I'm like, okay, well, cool, you tried that, so I might take the parts of it that I want to try and leave the rest of it. Right? I've gotten to where I can like pick and choose and not feel like everything is like so black and white. Right? Like, well, I mean, if I do this, like, how am I going to fit this in? And I just feel like you become more confident. But I mean, you know what? There's a lot of moms that I know that have older kids that have been momming longer than me. And they still are just so worried about what other people may think of their parenting style or like their parent. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's gotta be like motherhood is already so exhausting. I can't even imagine being so wrapped up in like worrying about what other people were thinking about my parenting choices. Like you have to release that. You gotta let it go. So like, if you're listening to this and your wife is like that, or you're, you know what I mean? Like if you're a woman listening to this and you have kids, you got to let it go. You got to release it because
it's so bizarre how in 2024, there's still mom shaming. It's like so bizarre.
Yeah. I mean, I don't give a shit. Yeah, I have my preferences and I have things that I like fully believe and like I'm aligned in and right.
Yep.
But I don't give a shit what other people do with their kids, right? Besides, like, again, the obvious, I don't want anybody harming children or, you know what I mean? But like, if you feed your kid something that I wouldn't feed my kid, that doesn't mean that I think that you're a bad mom. You just make a different decision than I make. If you do things with your kid that I wouldn't do with my kid, or, or you don't allow your kids to do things that I allow my kids to do. Cool. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make me feel like you're a bad mom or your kid's a bad kid or something bad's going to happen to your kid. It's just like, we just got to stop worrying about what other people are doing with their freaking kids,
Yeah.
Just worry about your own.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Worry about your own. And again, if you want to create a like-minded community of people who are, aligned with your values and like create a friend group for your children, that's really cool. Because it does feel good when you have people who are of similar mindsets, right? But also like some of the best friends that I have and some of the like closest friends that we have with kids are totally different than us. You know what I mean? Like they make
Yep.
totally different parenting choices and parenting styles than we do.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And it's just, we love those people no matter what.
Yeah. Before we go, I definitely have like one or two more questions, but one of the most important ones, because another Bluey episode popped into my mind again. It was an episode about, the mom was, she was getting overstimulated. She was doing a lot of things and she needed space. She needed like 20 minutes to herself. How important is it, for a mom to have, that, me time, as they call it, whether it be, 5, 10, 20 minutes, whatever the case may be. How, for you, we'll start with you, Sheena, how is it, do you get to have that? Because I know you do a lot. You do a lot more than a lot of moms do. You're doing a lot of farm stuff. You're being a mom too as well. So how important is, alone time or, centering time for you?
Yes. It's tough, you know what I mean? Because like I'm with my kids 24/7, so it is, you do feel like, oh my God, like, am I ever going to get this, and for me, it's like, sometimes I just need adult interaction. I don't even need like me time. I just need like a grown up to talk to where I'm just like, I feel like my mind is melting, but unquestionably, like it is vital. Like we have to have, like, you have to have time to recharge because overstimulation is real. Burnout is real. Like just like being touched out, like you'll hear mom say, I'm touched out, like kids hanging on you and like touching you. And like, it is a real thing. And it is so important for us to have time to recharge. And like, it's like standing in there washing the dishes while the kids are up, like that's not recharging. Like we need to like get out, go for a drive, go sit in a coffee shop for a few minutes. Like, you know what I mean? And it's really hard. And it's so effed up because like, there will be times when Seth's like, just go, just get out. You know what I mean? Just go here and like, go grab your, like if I'm out running an errand, he'll say, hey, just stop and have lunch or stop and have a coffee. Like, don't rush home. But there is something so effed up in my mind that like if I stop and I'm sitting at the coffee shop the whole time, I'm like, oh my God, well, I got to get home. Like, you know what I mean? Like I need to get
Oh,
home.
I feel that.
And it's like, I'm like, why the freak am I like that? Like, what is wrong with me that I can't even enjoy? Like when I do get the alone time, do get the opportunity to get out by myself, I can't even enjoy it fully because I'm like, I feel this like internal pull to like get home because like, God, like, and they're with their dad, you know what I mean? It's not like I'm leaving them with a babysitter. They're with their dad who is more than capable of handling them and taking care of them and loving them in the same capacity that I do. But it's like, it's so weird. So yes, to answer your question, it is so super important. So if you don't feel like your wife or partner or whatever is getting that, make sure that they get that, right? If they're going out to get groceries, like that's not a break. Going to get fucking groceries for the family is not a break. Okay. Like, that's not me time, right? Like they're like, well, you went out, you were by yourself. Like, no, that's not me time. That is me doing something for the family time, right? So yes, if I want to go get groceries for the family and then stop and have a margarita on the way home, you know what I mean? Or stop and get, a coffee or whatever and just sit for a moment and scroll my phone or read a book or do something where it's just mindless me time, right? Or even productive me time. You have to have that. And sometimes it just means if you can't get out, just having them go and like sit in a dark room or go to the bath and you take a bath or, you know what I mean? Like do something where it's like you are off limits, you know what I mean? And you have to have that. So if your partner's not getting that, it's a priority that like, it can't be emphasized enough how important it is.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
And it doesn't always happen. I will say, like, let me clarify, right? Like, I mean, I know there's probably women out there that are like, what doesn't like, I don't get it all the time. There's sometimes I'm just like, God dang, I don't even remember the last time I've had like, me time. Trust me. But
it's funny because I always say the easy part of my day is when I'm at work.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is the easy part of my day because I actually like my job, but also it's like I get to be around adults. I think I learned a lot about having me time is when I had my girls, I ended up with severe postpartum depression and anxiety. And that, I mean, rocked my world harder than I think anybody could ever imagine. That's why
how do you get this, like, you have this like overwhelming gratitude, you have these two beautiful healthy babies, and then you're like, you feel like, oh my God, the world is ending, right? Like it's like this.
It got to the point where Marco and my mom were afraid to leave me alone with my kids. It got that bad. And that's why I get very defensive when people, and again, not that I would ever condone it, but when there's, a tragedy where a mother murders her children, and they're like, she's a shitty mom. I'm like, unless you've been there, you have no idea.
Yes, you can't understand.
You can't understand where, like you said, it's like I have these, 2 babies that I carried proudly for 36 weeks in my 4'11" body, for God's sakes. And they're healthy and everything's great, but yet I have no maternal connection to them compared to with Lucas, who was just like my dream. And then of course feeling guilty for that.
Of course, yeah, and it's not even you. It's not you. It's a total just like
No, I remember
imbalance in your
Marco, I
body.
said something's wrong with me. It's not baby blues. Like I don't like them. Like I don't like I don't want to be around. Like I have no anything with them, and I like, and so he's like, well then,
and that's tough. That's hard because in your heart, because you felt the love you had with Lucas, so you're like, oh my God, it's so
love but also like I have no care for them, which is like awful. And I remember going to my OB, who I adored more than anything in this world. And I said, I feel like I'm the shittiest mother in the world. He said, you are dealing with, he's like, you have 2 newborns and a just freshly 2-year-old. And he's like, the fact that you're here just shows you're a good mom.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So hearing that and validating, it's like, okay, he's like, you have to take care of yourself. He's like, there's a reason why when you're on a plane and they say you have to put the oxygen tank on you before you put it on a child, it's because you have, without them, without me, how can I take care of them?
For sure.
And so there's many times where Marco could just see the look on my face where I'm just like, I am tapped out.
No, I feel
I just have to go into my car.
Yeah.
And
scream.
Yes.
Scream.
Go in the car, go outside, go walk.
Blast my music and scream and maybe cry a few times because I am a crier no matter what. But it's so utterly, and it's like you said, it is hard because, kids just want their mom no matter what. Dad could be right there. There's so many times where Marco is sitting there, and again, not on purpose, but he's sitting there scrolling on his phone, drinking his hot coffee.
And they'll walk right by him. Yeah.
Walk right
by him and be like, Mommy, can I have one? I'm like, your father is right here.
Yes.
And they're just like, there was one day I was, doing 5 things at once. Aaliyah comes down. She's like, Mommy, I want some juice. I'm like, okay, well, you need to wait a second. And she's, of course, being the impatient one she is. She's like, well, I don't want to wait. I said, okay, well, you have 2 choices. Either wait for me or go find Daddy. And he can do it. And she says to me, she goes, well, Daddy's playing video games. I don't want to bother him. Oh, I'm sorry.
I know.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's so, isn't it funny? Like the consideration that they give their dad. You know what I mean? And it's not, I'm not blaming the dads, right? There's times when I'm scrolling on my phone too, but it always seems like it's the case whenever I'm like doing 25 things and I'm like, your dad is just sitting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they don't even say anything. That's the thing. Like it's one thing if they said, they walked up and he said, hey, can you do this for me? And I said, no, I'm doing something. As if they don't even
no.
It's a totally different type of consideration.
The knowledge to go, oh, he's doing something.
I always say to him, like, your father is perfectly capable of doing things. Give him some. I had total hip replacement. I was walking into the house in crutches and Mommy, can you make me chocolate milk?
That's a whole other that is a whole other rabbit hole. Mommies do not get sick days. Like, dude, we got food poisoning, and we're all just like taking turns throwing up, right? Well, guess what? Who's the one that has to go out to Walmart and get the coconut water, get up with the kids, and they want me to hold the trash can for them. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, oh my God, like I'm puking myself, and meanwhile I'm holding the trash can for the other kid, like.
Nope, that was like when we had COVID. I ended up with COVID first, and then the next day he got it, and he was on his deathbed, and I'm just like, well,
Back
I
to
guess
work.
Yes.
yes, I'm good. And he's like, well, are you going to be okay? I'm like, well, I have no choice.
Yes. Oh, I know.
I'm like,
No.
you can't even get out
Yeah,
of
you
bed.
had I had the bedridden one. She had the severe headache. And then
Mhm.
That's it.
that was pretty much it. Mine was like the physical, like I can't move anywhere.
Yeah,
Like
you
I was like
were sick.
bedridden. I was just
No,
laying.
that's just called just being a man and
Pretty much, yeah.
getting a sickness. Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah, women were just like, you guys had the same, you guys had the same variant of COVID.
very true, very
Women
true, very true.
I didn't have any headache.
women just handle shit differently. We were just built different.
That's why I always say men can be physically stronger, but us women, we can multitask a lot better.
Mhm.
When it comes to any type of, physical pain, again,
Oh yeah.
men have to give birth.
We're
Get
built
it.
to, we're built to give birth. So
Marco
that's
has gas pain and he's going to the ER.
Pretty much, yeah.
I'm like, my favorite story is always when I was 8 months pregnant with the girls. Marco, how swollen was my feet? Like it was.
Oh yeah, they were bad.
It was scary how swollen I was. I remember, and again, I was working 40 hours, second shift at a hospital.
Oh my God.
I would get into bed and I would just lay there and be like, oh my God, thank God. I'm just, everything hurts right now. And he's like, yeah, my shoulder's been bothering me lately. And I'm like, I'm carrying 2 humans. What are you doing? All right.
Oh my God.
Also
phantom pains. That's what
Also,
it was.
yeah. I was like,
It's
and
phantom
also
pains.
chasing a toddler while working 40 hours.
Phantom pregnancy pains. That's what the
Yeah.
fathers do.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Please.
That's what it is.
Like I said, there's reason why God created women. You men would be.
Oh yeah.
That is true. We do you do mother everybody, the kids, the fathers.
Yeah.
I would say I don't have 3 children, I have 4.
Yeah.
Like my oldest is usually worse.
I feel that.
You sometimes are worse than the kids.
Sometimes.
Mhm.
Not all the time. Anyway, we'll move off of that subject. No, I think this is good. I enjoyed this conversation. I'm gonna leave it off. We'll leave it off. That's like, so what? Let's see what the question is. How do you define? We'll start with you. How do you define motherhood?
You already asked this.
But like as ending, like the ending. Like what do you like?
I always say motherhood is like a roller coaster. You have the
Mhm.
highs and the lows, the twists and turns, the scariness, yet you would do it all over again.
Okay,
Mhm.
I like it. How do you define your definition of motherhood?
I think, to me, motherhood is just loving something so deeply, like more than you love yourself. You know what I mean? Like there's just absolutely nothing that could stop you from loving whatever this being is. And I know sometimes it's, there's, I'm not one to compare, like, people who call their dogs their babies and stuff, because I totally feel that. Like my dogs
Yeah.
were my babies and I had a very maternal relationship with like my dogs and stuff like that. So I feel like motherhood is just that, like, just overwhelming sense of like I would take a bullet for you. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
there was no limits to what I would do to protect you and to keep you safe and, make sure that you have everything that you need.
Awesome.
It is crazy how you literally would die for your kids.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like that love that's like so it's like indescribable yet
Mhm.
scary too at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a totally irrational type of love. And it's like, it's a love for a very long time that's not reciprocated. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like in a tangible way, right? Like obviously,
Yeah.
your baby loves you and all that, but it's like, it seems very one-sided for a very long time. And to me, like the ultimate goal of motherhood is like, I want my adult children, like if my adult children want to be around me and want to hang out with me, like, then I feel like that's it. That's the mecca for me. You know what I mean? Like that is like, means that I did a good job as
Yeah.
a mom,
100%.
So they don't need to be, they don't have to go to Harvard. They don't have to do, like want to be like, the most famous person in the world, but
Nope.
as long
Yeah.
as they as long as they value family and, you know, want to hang out with their old mom every once in a while and be around us. And I feel like that's
Same.
And any final like Mother's Day messages that you want to put out there for all the moms, and not just like the, you know, biological moms like we talked about earlier, like, you know,
yeah, I just want to tell moms, you know, I know this hasn't been our typical open mic fodder. I know it's typically more wrestling centric or more nerd centric, right? So I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode and listened to us kind of just like have our little, you know, parents corner chat. But to all the moms, I just want you to know that you're doing enough. You're good enough. You know, don't allow yourself to get swept up into the comparison. You know, your kids are going to be just fine, you know? So at the end of the day, your kids are going to be just fine.
What's your message?
Same to all the moms out there. And I have to give a shout out also to the single dads out there who are doing their thing. I commend you. You are enough. You are doing an amazing job. Or you can also be like me, who has a little jar with money in there to give them therapy if they need it.
Exactly. You know what? That's the perfect insurance policy. I just think, you know, and I think, you know, just to kind of piggyback on what we were talking about, there's no one way to be a mom, right? There's no one right path and there's no one right situation. And it's okay if your situation changes, right? Like, I feel like there's no, like, you know, if you decided that you wanted to stay home and keep your kids, that's totally fine. It doesn't mean that you're a better mom or a worse mom. If I decide, like, you know what, this isn't working out, I'm going to put the kids in school and I'm going to go and find something, you know, for myself. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like we need to be open to all pathways of motherhood, you know, and just the evolution of it, and not being prejudgmental about, you know, why someone may choose to do something.
Worry about your own.
Yeah.
Exactly. Don't you worry about us. You worry about your own.
Oh man. All right. No, this was great. I want to say thank you both for being on, and you know,
thanks for having me for a fourth time.
I know, 4 times you've been on the show, and
4 times
keeping me up.
Second time, I know, right? Yeah, you're like,
I know. Speaking of mom shit, yeah, she's got to wake up at freaking 5 o'clock in the morning.
No, definitely. No, this is a good episode, and I do like the fact that you know, we can kind of spread the message of, you know, mom love to everybody, and you know, just spread that message. You know, happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there, whether you're
cheers to you.
Cheers.
Happy Mother's Day,
Cheers
Sheena.
to you,
happy
baby.
Mother's Day, Kimberly, and you know, happy Mother's Day to, you know, all the moms. You know, in the physical and in beyond, obviously, and you know, all the moms out there that are, you know, mother figures that are, you know, helping, you know, raise a village, as they like to say. And I know freaking this freaking cat right here is like,
that's my first. That's my first.
That's all I've been staring, like, kind of like staring. I'm like, what do you do? That's the firstborn.
That's it. Yeah, my dogs taught me how to be a mom. Yeah, they taught me how to.
She's my first, and I'm expecting champagne and sushi on Sunday.
Okay, right.
Heck yeah,
you guys stay away from me.
Heck yeah. She wants champagne and sushi in a room by herself.
Your Vanderpumps and all that stuff. Right.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, and happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, and we'll talk to you soon. Later.